sport management industry people do we have in here that actually want to work in a professional sport area? Okay, how about college sport? Youth sport recreation. How many business majors do we have in here? Okay, HPERC. So half and half. Okay, that helps me just get a little context of who I'm talking to and where to go with this. So most of you probably know me or know of me. My name is Kristina Navarro. I mainly deal with our graduate programs here, but Joe and I work pretty closely with Dr. Edney on any recreation and sport management areas as well. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my background, where I got to where I am, what I do, and then I wanted to talk more about the different areas of professional development organizations you could get involved in within this broad scope of what I just talked about, from recreation to sport to higher education to college, etc. Sound good? All right. So as we go here, presentation flow chart. My background, everybody that talks to me from a graduate perspective, how do I, one, get to graduate school, or how do I, two, get a job? And so hopefully I can give you some tips on that, having been somebody that has worked in the sport industry, has been more on the academic side, and now came full circle kind of back to working on the athletic side. A lot of what I do is really around career and professional development. So I hope that you can take something away from this as well. Approaching the job market, so what do you need to do to find a job in this area? I think that's really an important piece of this. If you're in the classroom and you're starting in an intro class in this minor, what do you need to do while you're here in school so that you can get a job when you graduate? Because that's our number one goal for you as well. What are graduate school outlets and options? What do those look like? Okay, I can tell you about this institution, but then also my colleagues at other institutions. You'll find that the professors here and the folks that work here are connected beyond just Whitewater. So for you to get to know us and for us to get to know you is to your benefit. And then any question or answer that you want to cover, we can do that as well. So myself, like I said, you can call me Dr. Navarro. I prefer you probably don't say, hey, you, but many people also go by Kristina. So whatever you feel most comfortable with is fine. I started out at UW-Madison as a business major. So my undergraduate was in management and human resources. I really always had this interest and passion in sports. So I was an athlete myself. Kind of my athletic side of the background, I was a three-sport athlete in college, in high school, basketball, volleyball, and track and field. And for me, I wasn't quite tall enough to go Division I. I wasn't quite good enough to go Division II. So what I decided to do was to walk on to the rowing team at UW-Madison. Okay, how many people know what rowing is? All right, so in the boat, you're rowing it out on the crew team. So for me, it was kind of this nexus of I really enjoyed athletics. I wanted to work in some form of a business and sport combination, and I was at a really large institution. For me, it just didn't work. I was a very academic-minded person. I wasn't necessarily able to balance the get up at 5 in the morning thing, work all day, and then come home and have buckets of homework. So for me, I'll be the first to say, I really struggled with time management during my freshman year and sophomore year of college. How many freshmen or sophomores do we have in here? Any? Okay, so I think that's a common theme, right? It's hard to balance all this. But for me, the decision was really, what do you want to do? How do you start thinking about where you want to be when you graduate? And then how do you move backwards? So what happened for me specifically was a transfer. I transferred to UW-La Crosse, which is obviously one of our rivals here. But for me, it made sense. I was able to look at business and sport management. And I say that because I think what we've tried to do here is really help you think about how can you come at this from a business lens, an HPERC, health and human performance lens, and also a management perspective. So those of you who have been here a while have noticed that our undergrad program has shifted its focus quite a bit, and that's intentional so that you can find jobs when you're done here. Okay, so I did that 2002, 2012, or 2003 Management and Human Resources major at UW-Madison, transferred to UW-La Crosse, continued to participate in the sports of track and field and volleyball, finished my degree in business administration and sport management. So kind of probably to the similar tune of those of you in the room that might be business majors and sport management minors. And just kind of a little background too, the reason we have developed the sport management program here as a minor, and myself, Dr. Edney and Joe Corallo have really been instrumental in looking at this, really focusing on how can you become the most employable version. How can you compete against the UW-La Crosse people? How can you compete against the Ohio University folks? So I encourage you, even if you are not a business major, you're an HPERC major in this, how can you start to align yourselves with understanding both the business aspects, the management aspects, and the science aspects of the profession? So that's my one little tidbit for you. So then you can kind of see I took a 1-year hiatus here. For myself, I needed to further explore what was this broad range of student management. So the field is huge, right? There's many, the positive is there's many different outlets for you to go into as a career, but the negative is also how do you focus yourself. So for me, I took a year and I did an internship. I know you guys hear internship thrown at you all, and Dr. Edney is in charge of that undergrad program now. But that's really where you can utilize a leverage point to say, here's what I want to do, or I don't want anything to do with that. So for me, it was here's what I think I want to do. I'm going to do my internship at UW-Madison in the athletic department and kind of see and understand what it looks like. Even within the realm of college athletics, there's about 12 to 13 different avenues you could go in a college sport athletic department. From compliance, to tickets, to marketing, to leadership, to working with students, to being more oversight of programs. So there's a wide variety of things that you can do. And for me, I didn't know that until I was able to get in there in an internship. What I found during that internship year was that I was going to need to have a graduate degree. For me, college sports was where it was at. I really wanted to work in college sports. So that meant I needed to look at master's programs. So I applied widely, and we'll talk a little bit more about what does graduate school look like. Even though you might be saying, why do I care about graduate school as a sophomore or freshman? Everything you do from now until you graduate is setting you up for that. Okay? Whether you like it or not, the grades you have on your transcript now are going to be what people like me look at as a graduate program director and see how things are going. Not to say that if you've had some struggles, you can't overcome that, but kind of thinking about that and be forward thinking. So I ended up deciding to go to UNC Chapel Hill. The reason I decided to go there is because I was able to get hands-on experience in athletics departments. And I'll talk more about what you should look for in a graduate program down the line here as well. As I was there, and I'll go into a little bit more of what my experiences were, I really decided I wanted to work with students. So I liked the marketing stuff, I liked the ticket stuff, but for me, the business side of things was important to have, but I really enjoyed the teaching and the student side. So I went on back to UW-Madison. I had an opportunity to work in their athletic department, more on the academic side of things. Did my degree while I was working. So that's another opportunity to think, and I know many of you in the room might be holding down a couple jobs right now as well. For me, that's the only way I knew it. I continued to work as I was going to school. So I kind of hit on this already, but as a former student athlete and somebody who was really passionate about sport and business, this kind of just made sense for me. And I assume that might be the case for many of you in the room, whether it's recreation sport, intramurals, whatever you're involved with. So from a professional background, and you'll hear me talk a lot about resume building and what that looks like. So you don't just do something for the sake of putting it on your resume. That's not necessarily a great way to live your life. Like, oh great, it's going to build my resume, I'm going to do this. You want to have some value to what you're doing as well, but find things that I always say to people, what are you most passionate about and what's going to support that? So when you're down the line having to write, what is your philosophy statement? What do you care about? Why should you come to this grad program? Why are you a good fit for this job? You have something to talk about. That's not just I sat in class and did X, Y, and Z, but you have experiences that you can draw on. So for me, when I applied to grad school or when I applied to jobs, what I would talk about is the internship I did as a sport management business student. I would talk about the volunteer stuff I did. And I think that the common maybe misunderstanding too is even though you're volunteering and not getting paid, nobody cares. You can still put this on your resume as valid experience that you've had. So for me, I was an intern in the Office of Student Athlete Support Services. Okay, yes, I was getting coffee, and yes, I was running copies, but the more I was around and willing to do stuff, people threw more my way. So I think that's also something to understand when, regardless of wherever your field experience or your internship is, if you're there and you're engaged and you show like you care and you want to be there, people are going to start giving you stuff. And hopefully you're somebody that wants to receive that because it's going to help you grow and set you up for the next thing. So that's kind of how that experience went for me. I started lowest person on the totem pole and was kind of able to crawl my way up by means of saying, I can handle that, I'll do that, sure, give me that, that's fine. From there, this really set me up, and this is another point I want to make. Your internship people are connected. So this set me up for this. Working in the student athlete support services set me up with a Badger State Games internship. And that was a little bit more back on the business side again. Because I had been here, they connected me here. So everything kind of comes interconnected here. Practicum with UW Athletics, strength and conditioning. So for myself, I was very interested in, my minor was in strength and conditioning. Okay, here we have a new minor in strength and conditioning as well. And a lot of this, the reason we've changed our programs is to make you all more marketable in a wide variety of things. So I worked very closely with some of our sport programs at UW-Madison. Hockey, basketball, and volleyball as their strength and conditioning assistant. So for me, this was a lot of just exploring, trying to figure out what was best fit for me. I liked coaching, I liked athletes, I liked students, but what did I like about it most? And then I kind of realized I liked teaching. So that's what helped guide me. Anytime you think about a graduate degree, so for me, I knew if I wanted to be in a college environment, I needed a graduate degree. And you'll kind of see that more and more. If you want to be working with students in the schools or in a college environment, you're going to need a master's degree. If you're working in professional sport, they really value more industry experience. So you might be somebody that gets your degree here, goes and works for 5 years, and then maybe goes back and gets an MBA or an MSA or some form of a master's degree. But for me, knowing I wanted to work in an academic environment, I had to go right away. Okay, so that's kind of where this came from. And during my graduate school time frame, I tried to get as much experience as I could. So I worked with the Carolina Leadership Academy and their student athlete development kind of arm as their intern, or their graduate practicum, whatever that is. That led to opportunities to take on more responsibilities, so by the time I left there, I was a co-director of their freshman mentorship programs. I also served as the SAC advisor, the Student Athlete Advisory Committee. So you can see a lot of what I did here has set me up for today, kind of the roles that I assume here on this campus as well. Okay, so this, I don't need to give you my whole resume here, but the point I'm trying to make is more or less everything that I've done throughout the last 12 years of my career has been because of the connections I made at my initial internship. So I know right now it might not seem that has much relevance to your life, but looking back on it as somebody that's fairly new in the profession but has a significant amount of experience, that's really what helped me, is making those connections, even as close as my professor as an undergrad setting me up with that initial internship. So what I currently do now, for those of you that don't know, I serve as our graduate program coordinator for higher education and athletic administration. So people who want to work in college sports or want to work in a college environment. Maybe you want to work in academic advising, maybe athletics, maybe recreation. But the common tie with what I do is it's in a college setting. Okay, that's a bit different than the HPERC, Health, Human Performance, and Recreation side, where it's more clinical based, or in the community, or working with youth sport, or even on the professional side. Technically, I would argue if you want to go into the professional side of sport, looking at more of a business-oriented master's program makes sense for you. So on the teaching side here, that's what I do. So I teach classes in the grad program. I used to teach more of the sport management undergrad classes, but now that's kind of what Dr. Edney's role and Joe Corallo's role is here on campus. So I've shifted more to the graduate side of things. On the athletic side, I'm involved with what we call the Leadership Academy. So this is an initiative with student athletes and campus to really help elevate the level of them being prepared for life after athletics or life after sport. Okay, so we kind of talked about this already, but what are your current majors? Business/HPERC. Do we have any communication journalism people in here? A couple? Okay. So those are typically what the areas that I see coming together in a sport management major. Okay. So the advice that I give you as you're crafting your own career trajectory, or you're trying to develop where do you want your internship to be? What do you care about? What are you passionate about? And how can you do that on a daily basis? Because if you're in a place where you're absolutely miserable, it's not necessarily going to be good for you or the people you're working with. And so the message also is internships are becoming more and more competitive, right? So you want to put your best foot forward in these circumstances. And the way that you do that is gathering a wide range of experience while you're here or while you're working. It doesn't matter if you're working a job that has nothing to do with sports right now. What you're doing in that job is giving you skill sets that can relate. So it's your ability to be able to say and sell, I did this over here, I can do this in this environment. Kind of already hammered on the importance of relationships and network, right? So really for myself, I was still very close with my undergraduate internship advisor at UW La Crosse. So I kind of went into the office and said, I have no clue what I want to do with my life. I like sports, I like business. I think I can kind of write and I can kind of talk to people. What do you think? And she just gave me options. And so hopefully you see myself, Dr. Edney, Corallo, anybody in this environment that provides you the resources that you can then run with. One thing that I always suggest to people as well is developing a career trajectory statement. Okay, what is your 1-year goal? Where do you see yourself? Maybe that's graduating. Maybe that's getting through a field experience. What's your 3-year goal? What's your 5-year goal? And then for myself now, it's more like 10, 15, 20-year goals. So I encourage you to start doing this. How many people have a working resume? Okay. So what I do with a resume is I have like one life story. Here's anything I've ever done in my entire life, and I keep that in one document. But that doesn't mean I necessarily give that to every employer, or I give that to anybody that says, let me see your resume. You kind of start to pick and choose and decide, for this job, it makes sense for me to pull 1, 3, and 5, and pull that over. But then you always kind of have a running list of, here's things that I've done and experiences I have that I can work from. I can even show you an example if you want to of kind of what I do. Volunteer and engaging with the field. So for me, that was kind of being the person that's willing to volunteer at events, be there to do the stuff nobody else wants to do, and put your time in so that as you kind of elevate throughout this, you become the one that's overseeing all that stuff, right? And not to say that a Division III school here, you're still, everybody's kind of all hands on deck. But for myself, it was really working towards how do you position yourself and develop a wide variety of experience so you can be successful in many different areas. So I think it's probably a drag. You're all sitting in here, it's just after lunch, and you're kind of like, okay, when's she going to shut up? But I want you to think about, this is really the network that you're developing. So those of you that are in your sport management program, okay, these are the people, like for myself, I go back to folks that are now working with the Brewers, Timberwolves, down in Florida, FSU, different institutions that were in my initial sport management cohort or classes. And I say, hey, what are you doing? I have this person who needs a job. Can you give me a connection there? So utilize the people in this room, even though you might not talk to the person sitting in the far back corner. Try to interact with people in this environment throughout all the courses that you're taking, because these are the people that can help you get jobs, even if you don't realize it now down the line. When you do all have jobs and you're all successful, you can utilize each other's networks. So I guess the point of this and what I would encourage you to do is be very intentional. Okay, I know it's really easy to show up, go through the day, check it off, go home, do what you do. But if you're more intentional about your thoughts, your energy, and your actions here, you're going to see that pay off down the road. Okay, and that's the folks that I have in the graduate program have done just this. Okay, they've been very intentional. They haven't just ended up there by default or mistake. They were very intentional. So think about it as an investment in yourself and your future career field as well. I always like the quote, and I'm kind of an intense person, but do not settle for status quo. Okay, status quo does not cut it. Especially now, this industry is extremely cutthroat. Okay, that's one thing I want to share. So on the coaching side, cutthroat. Sport management side, cutthroat. Professional sports, even more so. You are competing with people who might be Harvard business grads, who might be, perceived to be at the top of their game due to their Ivy League education, etc. But what you all can sell, and what I had myself to sell, was I had all this great experience that somebody sitting in class didn't have. So that's, I think, as we talk a lot about first-generation college students and people who are more boots on the ground, working a couple jobs and going to school, use that to your advantage. I certainly did. All right. So why don't I stop there for a second before we get into this? And questions in general on resumes, career trajectories, how you kind of navigate life in the sport industry. Anything at all? One thing that I should do, actually, I didn't need a dry erase, so let me have one here. I was going to draw a little deal on the board for how this field is situated. So let's look at this real quick. So if you have sport management, kind of a broad field. Within this, you might have recreation, youth sport, professional sport, college, and then kind of coaching can kind of fall in here as well, human performance. So what I kind of think about this too, on one side you have people and on one side you have business. Kind of through the continuum here, on this side of the house you're more involved with communities, with people, in programming. And on this side you might be involved more with the business and the management side of the house. So I like to draw pictures in my brain, it's just how I operate as well, kind of even starting with that and saying, where do I start to see myself situated within this? I think that sometimes helps get a clearer picture of where do I want to start to focus my energies, because sport management is such a broad area. So professional associations, when I say, and I'm going to ask for participation now, when I say professional association, what am I talking about? What is this? What is it? Why would I join a professional association? What's the benefit? Yeah.
Maybe some networking opportunities.
Okay, great. Mason, what is a professional association? Best
Well,
guess. Best guess. We'll just guess.
I'd say it's like a group of people that are somewhat at the same level and share experiences.
Okay. Emily, what do you think?
Just ways to feed off of each other and get just new ideas and what they've been through.
Perfect. So all that's right. Okay, and then also taking risks in class. So the worst thing up here is talking to a room of crickets. So I've learned just to start calling out people. There's no wrong answers here. So a professional organization is helping you as a professional in this field of sport management grow. And with that, there are networking opportunities. There's opportunities to have like-minded people come together and share best practices, or what are you doing well? How can I learn from you? What jobs do you have open? Okay, I know somebody, that might be a good fit. So I want to just walk you through a couple of these that are pertinent to your field here. Okay, so NACLA, and I'm going to go to the purpose of this. Oftentimes if you look at what the mission statement is, that'll help you understand a little bit more about what benefit could you have. There you go, our purpose. Okay, so that's a little small, I'll try to hit the high points for you. But basically what this organization is individuals who want to work in college sport and are women. Okay, there's a version from this for everybody that I'll show you too. But for me, this is where I find my professional home. People who are also women who work in sports, who also work in college sport. So it's basically an opportunity for me to connect with other people across divisions, across the nation, and say, what are you doing well? How can I do that or borrow that? And then what jobs might you have open? So here there's also, you can see right up here, find a job, connect, grow my career, join NACLA. So by joining these types of things, you're automatically connected to a group of like-minded people that maybe didn't go to school with you, but is another way for you to grow. and develop those relationships from the Harvards and the Northwesterns and those that you're going to be competing with in job fields. Another one to look at. NACDA. Okay, so here they all have their membership campaigns, and these do come with a cost. As a student, the ability to pay less is appealing. So as a professional, it's much more expensive to join these. As a student, they know students aren't rolling in the dough here and don't necessarily have professional jobs yet, so they make it pretty affordable. Okay, so this, if anybody is interested in working in college sports, this is the main organization. And you can kind of see NACDA, National Association of Collegiate Directors of Athletics. Across the top, you see all those little logos? Those are sub-organizations within. So here, we look at some of these. CABLA. Collegiate Athletic Business Management Association. Those people who want to be more involved with the finance business side of the house. This would be a great thing for you to explore. If you're interested in tickets, NATSO, National Association of Athletic Ticketing, Sales and Operations. Here's kind of a best practices, and I get this to my office too, and I'm letting you read it, but this little brochure is basically what are the best practices going on in the field and what jobs are out there. So the benefit to each of these two is if you're a member, you get access to the job board, and you get access to kind of experts in the field. For me, I'm more on the academic side, so I grew part of this one, National Association of Academic Advisors in Athletics. So kind of pick your poison here as you're looking at these different areas. There's pretty much something for every area of an athletic department. This also can apply to professional sports. So if you're more on the business side of the house, there's more interaction, I would say, between somebody who does ticketing at a college athletics department and a professional sports arena because they use a common software. So starting to learn and explore, just go into this page and saying, oh, reading and looking, what makes sense to me or what would make sense for me given what my goals and passions are. And I can send you this presentation too. Okay. NSCA. Okay, the National Strength and Conditioning Association. So this is more on the coaching side of the house. Those of you that are interested in becoming a strength and conditioning coach, coaching at a college level, here's a network of people across not only your current institution, but across the United States that you can connect with. They also have professional journals. So a really great way to learn about the field, if you're not sure where you want to go, is to start looking at some of these professional journals about best practices or what's out there. What are people doing? Okay, so that's another option. NASM. This is a great for just general sport management majors. North American Society for Sport Management. Okay, so this is a society of professor-type academic people that teach in sport management programs that can provide job opportunities. So think of this as a network of nutty professors together that all have students like you looking for jobs, and they can try to help each other find good fits for internships, for field experience, and entry-level jobs. So up here you can kind of see again, conferences, membership, student services, get involved, student officers. A great way to get involved is also to serve as a student representative for one of these organizations outside of your campus. So I think a lot of times people think, what can I get involved with just here on campus? A great way to kind of expand your network would be, how can I get involved with one of these organizations that touches people outside of my own institution as well? These other two are more for the people that are interested in academic side of the house. Do we have anybody that's interested in being like an academic advisor for athletes, student services? Not so much. Okay, so those probably aren't quite as relevant. So are there any questions on the professional organization side of things and what they are, how they work? Myself, I just went to the conference for NACWA last week, and I brought a student or two with me in the past to some of these, and I think the experience that they get by doing that is to be able to see a little bit larger scale than solely what we do at Whitewater. So, I know some of you might be freshmen, sophomores, and not really thinking about this yet, but again, escalating towards grad school, that kind of starts now. So things to consider as you approach grad school. If you think about your undergrad, you have 120 some credits to fulfill, right? Grad school is more like 30. So it's much more focused. You generally are going to grad school because you want to work specifically in that profession. Sometimes undergrads, you're moving around different majors and you're trying to identify what is kind of a fit. Grad school, you want it to be a pretty strong fit. You want it to relate to what you want to do down the road. So that kind of leads to the point of where can you be personally and professionally happy? Because again, wherever you're going, you're creating a network for yourself. So what networks do you want to foster? What is your end goal? And that's why I say even starting out as basic as drawing yourself a picture. I can remember myself sitting at the kitchen table, even in high school, man, where do I want to go? I have all these interests. And I think that's a good thing that people have a lot of interests, but sometimes the hardest part is harnessing that or figuring out how all these interests are going to move into a career. What are your realistic and your dream schools? So every school is going to have a requirement from a GPA level to things like the GRE or GMAT. So how many people have heard of the GRE? Okay, so GRE stands for Graduate Record Exam. Kind of like you took the ACT or the ACT or the SAT when you came into undergrad. There's versions of that for grad school as well. So, as a positive, you may not have the best GPA, you might be a really strong test taker. On the flip side, you might not do well at tests, but you have a strong GPA and experience. Regardless, I think in this field, what people care about more so than grades, I have to say the grades are important, but is the experience that you bring, what makes you different, what makes you unique, what shows that you have hard work ability. I think every cover letter is going to say I'm a hard worker, I'm disciplined, and I'm determined. How do we know that? So think about how can you provide evidence, right? Evidence to show people like me who's reading this, or people who's in an employer's shoes, how can I really understand what this person's all about? So what are entrance requirements? Do I meet the minimum standards? What makes me stand out? And then what are the different parts? So when you apply to undergrad, it's a little different. When you're going into grad school, you want to be more focused. So what is your personal statement? Okay, your grades obviously are part of this. Is there an entrance exam required? But really what becomes needed now is letters of recommendation and people to speak on your behalf. To say, okay, they say they're X, Y, and Z, but somebody else also says they can do X, Y, and Z. And I think that's where some people struggle if they don't know who to contact, because they're not really sure who's in their corner and who's not. I did that already. So with that, I think that the thing that I want to leave you with is try to understand whatever your path is. Start with a picture. Start with however it works for your brain, but figure out where you want to go. And if you don't know, start asking